And a very good afternoon to all of you vaqueros. Welcome. You are tuned in to All In with Ali, Vaquero Radio's spot for sports information and takes. Welcome on, welcome all. Glad to have you with us here on a Monday afternoon. And let's get this discussion started off. And now we're down to 4 in the men's NCAA tournament. That's right. We got our last 4 teams, and well, shock, they're all 1 seeds. And this is, I believe, is the first time that this has happened in the tournament since 2008, which coincidentally the tournament was also in the Final Four was also in San Antonio that year. But anyway, we got 4 games out of the Alamodome in San Antonio, and we're gonna start off by discussing the first of the 2 matchups that'll happen on Saturday. That'll be Florida versus Auburn, and I think this is gonna be a good one. But I think Auburn will just slightly edge out Florida in this one. Florida, of course, they've got an elite backcourt, and Elijah Martin's making some history as the first player in NCAA men's history to appear in a Final Four for 2 different programs. But despite let's go back and talk about Auburn though. But despite the a bit of a slide that they were at towards the end of the season, Auburn's been dominant. They were the best team in the SEC. Broome was the SEC Player of the Year, and that's carried them to a lot of dominant wins in this tournament. So for that reason, I will have Auburn slightly ahead of Florida in this game as Auburn returns to alumni Charles Barkley's favorite city. And moving on then to Houston versus Duke, I think this is showing to be the best game of the tournament, or this is at least going into it. We've seen a couple of close games in this tournament, but not as many as I thought there were going to be. And it's kind of shown here that it's all 1 seeds. These are all the top teams in the country, and there's almost no mid-major upsets. There was really no Cinderella run by a 10 seed or below this year. It was really just big showings from the top programs in the country. But on to this game, Cooper Flagg and Con Newpel for Duke have just been an incredible duo in the front court for the Blue Devils. Both of these guys, of course, are projected to be 2 top 10, top 15 NBA draft picks at the end of the season, which, shock of all shocks, Cooper Flagg is going to go number 1 overall. And I've talked about him also as well last week. He's just an incredible player, great mid-range, knows what to do in the paint, and that to me is Duke's biggest strength. Their biggest strength will come from their strength and their height, which just allows them to completely dominate the paint. Ken Pom has them as the most efficient offense in college basketball for that reason. Their shortest starter is 6'6". All that height and that strength is just deadly in the paint, in the lane, and from mid-range. I mean, Cooper Flagg his shot's serviceable from 3, but his true strength is in mid-range and in driving to the paint, and also he's an incredible defender as well. On the other side, you got Kelvin Sampson and Kelvin Sampson's Houston Cougars, who will take on Duke at 7:49 p.m. Any Kelvin Sampson team, they're going to be all about defense, and Houston's been one of the best defensive teams in this tournament. They've shown that all year, especially in a conference that was as top heavy as the Big 12 was. And now, well, we're down to 2 SEC teams, an ACC, and the last Big 12 team standing is Houston. The Houston's strength not only comes from their defense, but I think from their 3-point shooting as well. They are deadly from beyond the arc, and Duke's defense is going to have to lock down, but this will be an incredible matchup. I think Duke wins this out not purely through, but on a great effort by Con Newpel and by Cooper Flagg. But I think this game will come down to the wire. We could see a game winner in the 4th. I think this perhaps also goes over to overtime. This game has that much of a chance of going to overtime. But one thing I really also wanted to talk about is how we all got just pure 1 seeds in this tournament. Again, first time this has happened since 2008, and this just shows, you see the kind of impact that the transfer portal and that NIL has had on college athletics. It has really encouraged players to leave for if they have a good season, say at a mid-major or at a mid-ranking Power 5 school, take the NIL money that another big program can offer you and a spot that another big program can give you and just leave. That's just allowed these programs to stack up on that's allowed big programs to stack up on the best players, and we've seen the impact of it here. And we also see that where teams can just exclusively go into the transfer portal, offer the promises of NIL money, and stack their rosters of incredible players, which sure, some of the credit's got to go to the scouting and the development that some of these programs have, but then also but also being able to, it's a complicated mess with NIL and the transfer portal. We're gonna go take a quick break here on Vaquero Radio, but don't touch that dial. We got some more hoops to discuss. We got MLB's opening weekend, and we got the Japanese Grand Prix. Previews for all three of those will be coming up after the break. You're listening to Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. And we are back from the break. Welcome back to All In with Ali. Let's discuss it's race week, and we got some big things to talk about. First off, big shakeup that happened last week at Red Bull. Liam Lawson has lost his seat and he's been sent down to Racing Bulls, while Yuki Tsunoda will make his Red Bull debut at his home Grand Prix. I mean, that's just, first of all, incredible story. I know Yuki has worked hard his entire career, and he deserves this moment, and he deserves a shot in that second Red Bull seat. But that begs the question: is the second Red Bull seat that that attractive of a job? I mean, sure, you get to race alongside Verstappen. That's always great, and you're always that Red Bull's always going to be a competitive team with Verstappen in one of the seats. But I mean, you just go and look back at the other drivers that have filled that seat. I mean, you see what's happened to Kvyat, to Ricardo, to Checo, to Liam, to Alex Albon too back in 2020. So hoping that Yuki has better luck than the other drivers have had in that seat. And, I know there were some great performances by those drivers in that seat. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know why that seat just happens to have a lot of turnover at the moment. And then with Liam Lawson getting sent down and Yuki Tsunoda taking this seat, who knows? Things might change, things might not change. But what we do know is this: Helmut Marko confirmed that it's going to be the rest of the season. So that's going to be Red Bull's lineup: Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda at 1 and 2. I like it though. I like what Red Bull did in this instance. Liam Lawson hasn't had the best couple of races, so that they want to compete. This shows that they want to compete and they're not messing about. So as soon as they possibly could, they made the move, they made the switch, and that's going to be the big thing to keep an eye on with the Japanese Grand Prix starting this week. Another storyline to keep watching as we go along in the season is McLaren, and I think as of right now, we're about 2 races into the season, McLaren's looking like they got a pretty good path to the World Constructors Championship, and Lando Norris has a pretty good chance also being in the mix for the World Drivers' Championship. Of course, we haven't seen results that Verstappen would like to see coming out of the Red Bull seat. We know that Ferrari has suffered unimaginable disasters in their last 2 races, with both Leclerc and Hamilton hoping to compete for that drivers' championship, but it's just a string of errors and DNFs at Ferrari that just are mind-boggling. So I think McLaren's got the best path. They have, I think, right now, what looks like a couple races in, the best car on the grid. I mean, that McLaren can fly. It is an incredible car. Both of the drivers are adjusting well to it. It's going to take a lot of work by the other teams to if they want to compete with McLaren, but I think so far they're the standout team. So at this point in the season, Mercedes is not far behind. Red Bull, like I said, they're always going to be competitive and in the mix as long as they have Max Verstappen taking one of those two seats. And Ferrari, for as competitive as they can be, for as good as their drivers are, I don't know how this is consistent, that how they consistently find ways to shoot themselves in the foot every single weekend. I don't know, whether it's errors with the car, whether it's a completely uh, a completely unexpected error that takes your car out for the weekend, or whether it's just a strategy, or just strategy mistakes, poorly timed box calls. It's it's getting to a point where this is almost every year with Ferrari, and it's such a shame to see that that was that that an organization and a racing team that is as highly respected and as highly prestigious and as decorated as Ferrari has been over the years, to see them, it's been like this since Kimi was there. It's been like this since Vettel was there way back when. You know, when Vettel came to Ferrari, he was coming off of he was coming off, when he was at Red Bull, he had 4 straight drivers' championships. And then he went to Ferrari hoping to win more, and he never did. Mostly, a lot has a lot to do with the fact that they didn't field him a good car, and that there were plenty of strategy mistakes as well. And a lot's got to change over at Ferrari if they want to stay competitive either this year or next. We'll be back here from we'll be back in a bit. We'll talk some basketball, we'll talk some baseball, and on this day in sports history, one of my favorite segments on this show. Well, I love discussing stuff with you guys here on this show anyway, but one of my favorite segments to break down is on this day in sports history. Regardless, we'll have all that coming up for you next. Don't tune anywhere else. You're listening to All In with Ali on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. And we're back from the break. Welcome back to All In with Ali. At the top of the hour, we got some NBA to talk about here. First thing I want to talk about from last night's game between the Wolves and the Pistons. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, there was if you don't know, if you haven't seen the clip, there was a huge brawl in the second quarter of a game between the Pistons and the Timberwolves. 7 ejections were handed out, including to Naz Reid, to Isaiah Thomas, to Ben Sasser, and to Dante DiVincenzo, who DiVincenzo seemed to be at the center of all the scuffling and the fighting that was going on between the two teams. Both coaches were also ejected from the game, resulting in a total of 7 ejections and an untold number of technical fouls. Detroit got the technical foul shot at the end, but despite being up 10 when it happened, Timberwolves would come back and rally at the end of the game, which, you know, close enough. 1990s, the 1990s Pistons are back. We used to see the same kind of thing happen at arenas all the time when the Pistons used to play. I mean, I wasn't alive when it happened, but there was the Malice at the Palace way back in the day, which if you don't know what happened there, was there was a scuffle between the Pacers and the Pistons, and during that, someone threw a beer at Ron Artest, and he charged into the stands. So the bad boy Pistons are back, and I mean, the Pistons are doing pretty good this year. I mean, granted, the East is still a relatively the East is not as stacked as the Western Conference is, but this year, 42-33, being in line for the 5th seed in the Western Conference, is really not a bad place to be. Not a bad place to be at all if you're the Detroit Pistons, and they're a very fun team to watch play basketball. They compete, but I mean, this was all what mattered at the game. I think this whole thing was started and ended with Dante DiVincenzo, and I think there's definitely a suspension for him coming at some point down the line. Another story to keep up with. I mean, the Rockets are red hot, winners of 3 straight in a row as of today. Second best team currently in the Western Conference, and I mean, like I said earlier, the Western Conference is stacked with good teams. I mean, you got the Nuggets, who are always going to be competitive with Nikola Jokic, who, like I mentioned in my previous bit, is who I think is going to win or should win the MVP this year. The Lakers with Luka and LeBron, who also are just coming off a game-winning slam last night. And then you got the Warriors in the mix there as well, and with the Grizzlies, who unexplainably fired their head coach mid-season, where they are fifth in the West. I think the Rockets, as much as it pains me to say it as a Spurs fan, they play some really good basketball They play some really good basketball. Ime Udoka has been a great head coach, and I mean Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun are just so fun to watch play. Uh, it's just even as a Spurs fan, I don't. I'm supposed to hate the Rockets, which, but it's hard to hate this. It's hard to hate that they've been playing. You got to admit, still, when they play good basketball, and the Rockets are playing good ball right now. I think the West is going to come down to. It's going to come down to the Thunder, the Rockets, the Nuggets, and the Lakers. And speaking of the Lakers, they're after a bit of a skid they've been on this last week, they finally get off the schneid. Like I said last time, game-winning slam, Luka with the assist, and just a blast from the past. If you haven't seen that iconic photo of D Wade of D Wade and LeBron James way back in the day when they were both in Miami, after an assist from Wade, LeBron made the slam, and he was in the background of the photo, and you just see Derek. Sorry, not You see Dwayne Wade running towards the camera. Luka did more or less the same thing here. Luka set up LeBron. LeBron slammed it in the background, and you see Luka just like Dwayne Wade running towards that camera. It's a recreation of an iconic photograph that. And I mean, I don't buy into the whole Lakers in five thing. The West is still stacked. With the West being as stacked as it is right now. But I think they are definitely going to make a deep run, at least to the semifinals. Like I said, the semifinals are going to have to come down to those 4 teams. Like I said earlier, Nuggets, Thunder, Rockets, and Lakers for best in the West. Meanwhile, down the I-10 in San Antonio, the San Antonio Spurs are on a bit of a skid right now. And I mean, they have a tough schedule coming up. Fox is out for the year. Wembanyama is out for the year. At this point, it's just see where the young talent's developing. I really like what Jeremy Sohan's been able to do. Devin Vassell's also really come into his own. He's been playing great lately, despite these losses. Mamoukelashvili is emerging as a pretty good backup center off the bench as well. But and But the biggest thing for the Spurs is going to be those 2 picks they hold in the first round of this year's draft, one of which being their own, which has a pretty good chance of becoming a lottery pick, and the other belonging to the Atlanta Hawks that they got in the DeJounte Murray trade. And with the Spurs right now, according to Tankathon, have a 6% chance of landing the first overall pick, which is not bad odds, especially for a team that's outside outside the bottom 5 in the league. I mean, let's be blunt. I mean, as sideways as the Spurs season has gone this year, they're not catching the Pelicans, they're not catching the Jazz, and they are not catching the Hornets or the Wizards for Hornets, Wizards, Sixers, or Nets for the worst team in the NBA. But they still have pretty good odds of landing, especially with 2 picks that could end up becoming lottery picks. They have, especially with that, they have good odds of landing either Con Newpel or Cooper Flagg. If they land the first overall pick, they're going to select Cooper Flagg, who's just incredible, who's been the best player in college basketball all year. But being able to land Con Newpel is also not a bad deal either if you end up in the bottom half of the first 10 picks. And then also with another pick, you could with the Hawks pick, you could select somebody else in this very stacked draft class. I mean, this is probably a really good draft looking into it and looking forward towards it. It's just at this point, try to, you're going to end up with the lottery pick. And at this point for the Spurs, what they're waiting for is for the draft lottery to see if they get that number one overall. We're going to take a brief break here on Vodka Radio, but don't touch that dial. We got some more sports to talk about. We're going to be talking about opening weekend. We're going to be talking about what happened on this day in sports history and a lot more coming up after the break. You're listening to Vodka Radio, the Valley Student Station. Welcome back to All In with Ali. Let's discuss what happened this weekend. As you may or may not know, MLB just officially started their season, or they already have, I guess, before with the Tokyo Series, but now all 30 teams have played games. Opening day was on Thursday, and there's a couple of things I'd like to talk about. First off, the big uproar around the league as after the Yankees took their opening series against the Brewers, or these new bats that almost half the Yankees lineup was using, these so-called torpedo bats that concentrated most of the density of the wood near the label where batters make contact most often. I mean, the Yankees hit something like 7 home runs in 3 games against the Brewers using these bats. Well, there's a couple of reasons why. First off, I mean, the new bats certainly help, but they are legal diameter, and we're already seeing multiple teams use them. I know according to ESPN, the Marlins have started using these torpedo bats. The Braves have placed an order for these torpedo bats, according to Buster Olney. And imagine how much the uproar must be if the Astros were the first team to use them. They'd probably get banned league-wide, but as soon as their debut. But regardless, these are legal diameter bats. The league is starting to use them, but that's also not the only reason why the Yankees hit 7 home runs in 3 games. I mean, if you saw going back at it, there was just some terrible pitching by the Milwaukee Brewers. I mean, you'd think that this pitching staff could open an Italian restaurant with how many meatballs they were serving over those 3 games. I mean, a lot of just straight fastballs, between 80 and 92, just pumped right down the middle. I mean, most big league hitters are going to send that out of the ballpark. I mean, certainly Aaron Judge is going to send that out of the ballpark. I mean, he doesn't need to use the torpedo bats. He said so after the game. After one of the games, like, I think you just look back at the last 8 years, and you can see that I don't need a torpedo bat, which he's not wrong. He doesn't need it. He wasn't using it, and he certainly didn't need to use them in this series with how many good pitches the Yankees were seeing that they were able to send out of the ballpark. But regardless, the Yankees took their first series of the year. But the other New York team, the Mets, dropped their first series of the year as the Astros took 2 out of 3 to open their season at the newly minted Daikin Park, which I still cannot get used to that name change. It's always in my mind going to be Minute Maid Park, but in Daikin Park, the Astros took 2 out of 3 against the New York Mets in what was an incredibly well-pitched series. A lot of great pitching and defense, not so much on the offensive front, as no team scored more than 3 runs. The Astros scored 5. The Astros ended up scoring 6 runs in 3 games. The Mets scored 5 runs in those 3 games. But I think it was just a great effort by both pitching staffs. But like I said last week during the season preview, this Astros rotation is going to surprise a lot of people, and they certainly did. Framber Valdez, 7 innings of shutout baseball. Hunter Brown with 6 innings of 2-run ball, and Spencer Arrighetti also with 6 innings of 1-run ball. And this rotation is going to turn a lot of heads. Spencer Arrighetti was out there. He was a competitor. Hunter Brown just showed some great stuff throughout that outing, despite taking the loss. And Framber Valdez is a ground ball artist, as he's always been. He showed that. Last year, he led the league in forcing double plays, and this year, he certainly looks to do more of that. He's a very consistent pitcher, and by this time next year, Framber Valdez is going to be a very rich man. I mean, somebody's going to be paying a lot of money for his services, whether it's the Astros or another team. You could always use more pitching, and Framber Valdez is one of the most consistent pitchers in the league. And then the Astros bullpen looking a bit shaky at times. Josh Hader genuinely scared me in the first game after loading the bases with one out. But he managed to get out of it, striking out Soto to end the first game. And I think the Astros bullpen is going to settle down, but the only concerning thing I think is the offense. But the offense was the bats were making good contact. Isaac Paredes shows why he's got to be hitting in the 2-hole, because he sees a lot of pitches per plate appearance, and seeing that second hitter and the lineup has got to be wearing down a lot of. It's got to be tiring for opposing pitchers to face. And I mean, in the first game, they took Clay Holmes out in the 5th inning. They've been taking their great at bats. They've been making the contact, and in baseball, everything sorts itself out by the end. So I think it's only 3 games in. But when Altuve finds his rhythm, when Alvarez finds his rhythm, when Yiner starts hitting, this offense can be surprising. And this pitching staff, it's going to be a lot like it's already starting to frame itself like a 2022 team. The 2022's pitching staff was just nasty. And if the offense can get them a lead, you can just let the pitching do the rest. I mean, the rotation is going to surprise a lot of people. Like I said, but I mean, right now it's too early to tell who's going to be the biggest team in the American League West, because the Rangers also took 3 out of 4 games against Boston to start their season. They're looking pretty good. And the Rangers have always had great bats. Jacob deGrom coming back and making his season debut was a huge piece for the Rangers. And I think so far it's going to look like a dogfight between Texas and Houston for the top spot in the American League West. Another game I'd like to talk about here is some close games between the Tigers and the Dodgers to start the season. Detroit got swept, but these were two very close. They were 3 very close, very well pitched, and very well defended games. I thought that the runner was in that second game, that the runner should not have been called out after replay. It was still a little too close to tell from my vantage point, but regardless, I think the Tigers are going to be pretty good. Cleveland's always going to be solid, and they made an addition to get Nolan Jones, so it's going to be a dogfight between those 2 teams at the top of that division. Rays enter the season in their new digs against the Rockies, and I mean, it's going to take some getting used to, because we always used to seeing the Tampa Bay Rays play under a dome at Tropicana Field, but now after the hurricane took the roof off of Tropicana, they're going to be playing at Steinbrenner Field. I mean, it's going to take a lot getting used to the Rays seeing getting used to seeing the Rays play in an outdoor stadium, but I thought the atmosphere was great. Fans showed up, and I mean, it's right in the center of Tampa, which I think the reason the Rays chose Steinbrenner Field is to show that they can pull from Tampa, because they do get a lot of TV viewership, but the reason they don't get, one of the biggest reasons why they don't get many people to go to their games, is because St. Petersburg is so far away from Tampa. It takes a while to get to the games, and in the traffic of the Tampa Bay area, it's almost not worth going. But the Rays are trying to make that compelling push for moving the team to Tampa, which is why the stadium deal inside of St. Petersburg collapsed, which that could honestly be another segment that I'd love to delve into and I'd love to talk about. That won't be until next week or another week from now. We're going to take it here to one of my favorite segments here on All In with Ollie, and that is On This Day in Sports History. And on this day in 2001, Michael and Ralf Schumacher both shared the front row at Interlagos in Brazil. This is the first time that a pair of brothers ever did so in Formula One history. Michael Schumacher drove for Ferrari and Ralf Schumacher for Williams BMW. And at Interlagos that season in 2001, Daniel Coulthard would go on to win that race. But as the season would progress, Michael Schumacher would go on to win the World Drivers' Championship with 123 points. And Ralph Schumacher, despite winning 3 races, would finish with only 9 points after 7 DNFs in that Williams. Some programming notes coming up on this week and here in Vaquero Radio. We had today's programs. If you missed our newscast, don't worry. That's going to be Wednesday at 11. It'll be re-aired. Tomorrow, we got In the Know with Beck and Combe. That's a great program. I highly encourage you guys to go over and listen when you get the chance. That's tomorrow at 4 o'clock. At Wednesday, we got the newscast at 11. As always, if you missed it today, don't worry about it. We'll have all the news from the dedicated staff of Vaquero Radio at 11 a.m. Coffee Noise at 1 p.m. from our Edinburgh studio. Thursday is always a packed day of programming. Got library talk and everything else at 10. RGV Community Health at 11:30. And at 1 p.m., Vaquero Insider with Senators Andrea Gatan and Skylar Howell. And the longest running program here on Vaquero Radio takes place at 12 p.m. on Friday. That is office hours with our very own DJ Doc V. That's going to wrap it up for us here at All In with Ali, but don't worry about it. We will be back next week to talk some UEFA Champions League, more developments around Major League Baseball, and of course the preview to the final 2 in the men's NCAA tournament. There will be only 2 teams left, and I am just itching to discuss that with you guys. That's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, you stay classy, UTRGV. Have a great night.